Well, if you listen each and every Saturday, you always hear Dr. Dan talking to Harold Peacock. Our history segment there is very popular, and they're wonderful stories about our local history. And I'm very pleased to say we've snuck him away from Dr. Dan's show, and Harold Peacock joins us on the line this morning. Good morning, Harold.
Yes, good morning, Damo, and a special morning it is, Anzac Day, of course.
Yeah, it certainly is, mate. And you've got a special story about an Ipswich Anzac story.
Yeah, that's right. It's one of the most Anzac of Anzac stories you'll ever hear, and it comes from right here in Ipswich. And what makes this story unique is the family behind it. So look, everyone knows the 1st Battalion ashore at Gallipoli on the 25th of April 1915 was Queensland's own 9th Battalion. Now, second in command of the battalion was 28-year-old Major Beresford Robinson. He was a big man for his day, 6 foot tall, almost 13 stone, and he lived in Quarry Street right here in Ipswich. Now, Beresford was an officer in the Intelligence Reserve and was studying for his law degree when war was declared. He sent photos home from Lemnos Island in the Aegean Sea shortly before the landing, and the last photos taken by him were actually published by the Queensland Times. Now, Beresford was one of the first ashore at dawn on the 25th of April. He led his men up the cliffs and arrived at the neck. As he ordered in advance, he raised himself to look ahead and was shot. "Carry on, Rigby," he was said to have said to a lieutenant beside him, and then he died. And Beresford was buried at Beach Cemetery on the southern point of Anzac Cove. Now, just 10 days later, residents of Ipswich were informed of this awful consequence of war when a telegram from the Defence Department shared the news. Beresford's in memoriam service was the first one held in Ipswich, and quite possibly the first in the whole of Australia. That's because it was held at Ipswich's Central Congregational Church on the 9th of May. That was just 14 days after the Gallipoli landing itself. His father was the Reverend Joseph Robinson, who was a pastor there, and a photograph of Beresford is displayed in the church to this day. Now, what makes Reverend Robinson remarkable is that he's probably the only person in history to serve as chairman of a congregational union in 3 different colonies or states, that being New Zealand, South Australia, and Queensland. Also, he was in fact a cousin of the author Robert Louis Stevenson, who wrote books like Treasure Island and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So that just proves that this is a good story I'm telling you, Damien.
Yeah.
Now, Reverend Robinson, he was so highly regarded that when his son was killed, a letter from the commanding officer was even given to the governor of South Australia. And then there were his 3 sons, all of whom served at Gallipoli. Now, of course, one was Beresford. There was also Private Ross Robertson, who served in the Army Medical Corps until he was invalided home to Australia with chronic gastritis. Then there was the Reverend Captain Gordon Robinson, who was the first Congregational Army chaplain from Australia. He served with the 6th Light Horse near the very spot where his brother was killed. And with a shortage of chaplains and the growing death toll over there, Gordon was put under immense strain performing the last offices of religion over a growing number of dead. He was worked hard. In fact, Gordon himself was invalided at home and in 1916 preached as his father's Ipswich Central Congregational Church. But what makes the Robinson family so representative of the Anzac story isn't that they were 3 brothers who all served there, because there were other families with more, but it's because of the 3 brothers who served Australia, at least one of them was born in New Zealand, and all 3 of them volunteered from across different states of Australia, and that being Queensland, New South Wales and South Australia. Now, no other family that I've found represents the Australia and New Zealand Army Corps more than that of Ipswich's congregational pastor across New Zealand and all the states, half the states of Australia. It's a remarkable Ipswich story worth knowing about.
Wow, that is an amazing story. What a perfect day to tell that story on too, Harold.
It is. It's an emotional day always, and we should never forget. In fact, the best way that we can honour our Anzacs, both past and present, is to be the best citizens we can be.
Exactly, that is it, and mate, we can do that all day today, and not just today, but also throughout the year. Remember the sacrifice that many of our ADF forces have made, so that we can live in the lifestyle we're accustomed to. Mate, people can jump onto your website at historyouthere.com and check that story and a lot more as well, because you like to archive them all there, don't you?
That's right. There's almost 300 short stories there, and about a third of them are Ipswich stories, and absolutely historyouthere.com every week.
Oh, that is fantastic. And you often come up here too, don't you, and do a little bit of a meet and greet with some of our Historical Society people.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm planning to get out there when they have the open house of the historical houses in Ipswich on the 13th of May. And on the 20th of May, I'm going to be out there as well. And hopefully I'll pop in and see you guys in the studios on that Saturday as well. It's always good to see it.
It certainly is, mate. It's good to see you too. And I know Dr. Dan is always beside himself, which is not that easy to do. Harold, thank you so much, mate. And have a great Anzac Day. And I know you'll be getting out and about to a lot of the commemorations.
Certainly will, lest we forget.
That's it. Thank you so much, Harold at the Peacock. And check out the website, historyouthere.com, to get all the details of that story and many others. We're on The Brekkie Show. We're going to take a quick break and come back with more in just a moment.